Not every young woman is fragile, and not every grown man is perceptive enough to recognize what truly moves a woman. There are things she'll never admit out loud, but you can sense them in her silence, and in a glance that lingers just a little longer than usual. In a world full of empty compliments and fleeting conversations, sometimes what draws her in isn't appearance or status. It's the feeling of being seen, of being heard in a place so deep inside that she's never let anyone reach it before. Just one sentence, if spoken by the right person at the right moment, can stay with her forever. If what I'm about to share resonates with something inside you, subscribe to the channel and join me on this journey to explore emotions we may never have named. This video isn't for those looking for tricks or perfect lines. It's for the seasoned men, the ones who understand that the most powerful words aren't found in books, yet they have the strength to make a young woman pause and remember. If you've ever wondered what makes a young woman unable to forget a man without knowing exactly why, this is where you should begin. 1. You see what others haven't even noticed yet. There's one thing many young men overlook when approaching a woman. They only see what's on the surface: a pretty face, an attractive outfit, and a few charming replies. But a seasoned man sees differently. He doesn't just observe with his eyes, but with attention and a quiet sensitivity that comes from the heart. Young women, especially those who are intelligent and introspective, are often underestimated because of their age. People assume they haven't lived enough, aren't deep enough, and aren't complex enough to be truly heard. But the truth is, many young women carry a rich inner world. They just don't always put it on display, and they don't have to, because they know that those who have depth will recognize it on their own. When you say to her, "You see what others haven't even noticed yet," you're not just giving a compliment, you're acknowledging a part of her that's deeply personal, real, and often hidden from the shallow gaze of the world. And because of that, those words can move her in a way few things ever could. What you see might be something small: the way she falls quiet when the room fills with loud laughter, the care she takes in choosing her words, the thoughtful look in her eyes when she hears something she disagrees with but responds with grace, the way she steps back when the crowd gets too chaotic, not out of fear, but because she chooses to protect her peace. When you notice those things and say them with sincerity, you're giving her a gift she would never ask for: the feeling of being truly seen without having to prove herself. That doesn't just touch her, it makes you the kind of man she feels safe around, not because you protect her, but because you understand her. In a world where everyone is trying to speak louder to be heard, the man who listens to what isn't being said stands out the most. Women don't remember the man who spoke the best. They remember the first man who saw them, without embellishment, without needing them to try so hard to impress. You don't need to understand every layer of a woman's psychology, but if you can take a few seconds to notice the hesitation in her answer, or the subtle shift in her gaze when she drifts off in thought, you're already ahead of 90% of other men. Because women sense more quickly than you think. They know who's truly present and who's just listening while waiting for their turn to talk. So when the moment is right, say this to her, but only if you genuinely see it. Don't use it as a tactic to impress. Let it come naturally, as a reflection of your attention and respect. For example, when you're sitting together and you notice her quiet down after a funny story, lean in and say softly, "I noticed you always go quiet when something that's not funny gets a laugh." That says more than any words could. A line that's simple can make her feel seen in a way she won't forget. And here's the thing: when you say the right thing, you don't need to say much. Young women don't need a list of compliments. They just need one look that lingers long enough, one sentence that cuts deep enough, and one man who is steady enough to stay still in a world full of noise. When you can do that, you don't just leave an impression, you stay with her in a place even she might not fully understand. Train yourself to observe from a place of stillness. Don't just hear her words, listen to her emotions. Don't just notice her expressions, pay attention to her silences. And above all, offer young women the kind of presence that doesn't require them to perform to be acknowledged. Because there are things they will never say out loud. But if you're the first to see them, you'll also be the one they never forget. 2. You walked in, and something in me shifted. Some women don't have to do much to change the atmosphere. They don't need to speak up, seek attention, walk with power, or smile brightly. They just need to appear, and the energy in the room shifts, almost imperceptibly. You used to think that kind of thing was exaggerated in romantic movies, until you met her. She walked in, without drama, without noise, but you felt the shift, not in the room, but in yourself. The thoughts racing through your mind slowed. The loud conversations around you faded slightly, and in that moment, your focus narrowed to one thing, her presence. This isn't the kind of attraction you can easily point out like beauty or style. It's more subtle than that. It's like standing in front of a landscape you've never seen before, yet it feels familiar, like the slow swell of background music in a scene that unexpectedly moves you. She didn't just arrive. She brought something that made you want to be fully present, right where you were. And that kind of presence is a rare form of magnetism, one that few men recognize, and even fewer know how to put into words. No one remembers empty compliments like "you're so beautiful" or "you look amazing today." Sure, they might make her smile for a moment, but they blur into the background like every other compliment she's heard before. What truly moves her is when you speak to the invisible impact she makes, the kind that doesn't just affect you but changes the mood in the room, gently, quietly, undeniably. When you say, "I'm not sure if it was the lighting or you, but something shifted the moment you walked in," you're saying something few people even notice. And because it's subtle, it touches her somewhere she didn't expect, that deep, often unspoken desire to be recognized, not for the obvious, but for how her presence moves the world, even just a little. Young women may draw many eyes, but very few of those gazes make them feel they've stirred something meaningful. When you tell her she calmed your mind, sharpened your focus, or made you feel more grounded just by being there, you're helping her realize her presence has meaning, not just form, but force. And that has a powerful pull, not because you're flirting, but because you truly felt it. The truth is, many women don't even realize they have that kind of influence. They enter a room and don't notice how people shift in their seats, or how their eyes linger. But when you're the first to name it for her, you don't just create a feeling, you spark an awakening, one she won't forget. So pay attention. When a woman walks in, instead of just looking at what she's wearing, observe how the space responds to her. Do conversations slow a bit? Do people subtly adjust their posture? Does someone fall silent, just for a moment, to look more closely? And in you, do you feel something shift in your chest? If the answer is yes, then find the right moment, a pause after laughter, or when she's pouring tea or gazing out the window, and say it softly. "You walked in, and something in me shifted." Say it like someone discovering something, not someone trying to flatter. Women can sense sincerity in how you look at them, not with intensity or hunger, but just long enough for her to realize you see. When you connect through feeling, you don't need many words. She'll remember you, not because you were charming or funny, but because you were the first to help her see. She made a difference, not by doing anything, just by being. You don't need to be the most impressive man in the room. You just need to be present enough to notice what most others miss. And when she walks in, and you feel the space change, not just around you, but within you, don't keep that to yourself. Say it, simply and honestly. Because some women don't walk in to be noticed. They're not chasing attention. They don't need applause. But somehow, their presence still shifts the world around them, quietly, undeniably. And if you're the first to notice that, not with eager eyes, but with a calm, attentive heart, you've opened a door no one else has ever walked through. In a world where everyone's rushing to stand out, the man who's still enough to sense presence is the one who makes the real difference. Not because he's flashy, but because he's aware enough to feel the weight of a moment when everything subtly changes. Just because someone arrived, and maybe the deepest kind of pull isn't in beauty or clever words. It's in the feeling that when you walked in, I didn't need to look at anyone else, because the room went quiet, and inside me, it did too. 3. You didn't have to do anything, and that's exactly what made you unforgettable. There are moments you look back on and can't quite remember what was said, or what was so special about the cafe you were in. But one thing stands out clearly: the feeling. That feeling didn't come from the setting or the conversation. It came from one person's presence. Quiet, genuine, natural. She didn't do anything to impress. No funny stories, no deep insights. She even hesitated a bit when choosing her drink, and a couple of times she just smiled softly at what you said. Yet somehow, her presence made the meeting memorable, and even on the way home, you're left wondering, how could something so ordinary leave such a deep mark? That's when you realize she didn't have to do anything. And that's exactly why you felt so much more. Women can be attractive when they shine, but they become unforgettable when they unknowingly create an energy that makes others want to stay longer. Despite nothing particularly special happening, when you tell a young woman, you made the ordinary feel strangely unforgettable, you're touching the deepest part of her longing. Can I be loved just for being myself? Not for how I dress, not for the charm I try to project, but because I, in my most natural, unguarded state, made you feel more at peace. A compliment like that doesn't target appearance. It doesn't make her compare herself to anyone. It makes her breathe easier. It makes her feel seen, not for her achievements or efforts, but for her pure and original presence. And to a woman, that's a rare gift. Maybe you only sat beside her for an hour, no intense love story, no traditionally romantic moment. But if later on, you find yourself staring at the cafe window and remembering how she once looked through it, that's when you say something from the heart. Just a short coffee break, but I know I'll remember that feeling for a long time, not because of the place, but because of the person. Don't say it like a trick to impress her. Say it like you've just realized something unnamed, something you didn't plan for, but it left a trace in you. Pick a quiet moment, say it gently, and stop after the sentence, like even you are trying to grasp more deeply what just came out of your mouth. Young women often live under the weight of their own expectations, to be special, to be interesting, to shine, but the more they try, the more drained they become, and they're always wondering, if I stop trying, will anyone stay? When you are the one who answers, yes, I'll stay, because you are already enough. You're not just touching her heart, you're healing a piece of faith she thought she had lost. That's why a seasoned man doesn't rush toward excitement. He looks for depth, born from simplicity. No need for fireworks, just a slow afternoon, a conversation that doesn't need to be clever, a presence that doesn't try too hard, because those are the things that create feelings real enough to linger. Learn to recognize when a woman is truly there. No makeup for the moment, no defense, no performance. And if you can feel that, don't stay silent. Let her know. Not so she can be proud, but so she can understand. Sometimes you don't need to try to be memorable. Just showing up as yourself is already enough to be held in someone's heart. Some memories start from the smallest things: a sincere sentence, a casual meeting, a fleeting glance. And some people pass through your life just once, but leave behind a feeling you know you'll never relive again. If you've ever met someone like that, don't let her pass by without knowing she once made something unforgettable happen. A woman can wear many layers of armor: confidence, independence, humor, indifference, but her eyes don't lie. Even when she sits still, turns away, or smiles, her gaze still holds something unspoken: a touch of pain, a quiet struggle, a question no one has answered, a belief waiting to be gently acknowledged. And you, if you're perceptive enough, won't ask, "Why do you look sad?" You'll simply say, "For your eyes are like a whisper my heart understands." Some things don't need to be said out loud, yet move us more deeply than any spoken words ever could. A look, when it's real, can speak louder than a page full of letters. It doesn't need to explain, doesn't need to justify. All it takes is the right moment, the right person, and the heart on the other side will understand on its own. Women are often taught how to dress beautifully, how to speak charmingly, and how to act with grace. But rarely does anyone ask them, has anyone ever truly looked into your eyes? Not to admire, or to assess, but to truly listen, because in a woman's eyes there is always something longing to be said, even if she may not yet know how to put it into words. And if you are the first person who stops long enough to feel that, not with your mind, but with your presence, she'll remember you longer than any sweet line ever spoken. A woman can wear many layers of armor: confidence, independence, humor, indifference, but her eyes don't lie. Even when she sits still, turns away, or smiles, her gaze still holds something unspoken: a touch of pain, a quiet struggle, a question no one has answered, a belief waiting to be gently acknowledged. And you, if you're perceptive enough, won't ask, "Why do you look sad?" You'll simply say, "I don't know what you're thinking, but your eyes make me want to hear everything you haven't said." When you say that, you're opening a door to the most honest part of her, the place where she no longer needs to be guarded, where she doesn't need to choose her words carefully, doesn't need to pretend she's fine. She only needs to look, and you'll look back, not to claim her, but to understand. And if there's ever a moment when you should speak, it's the moment when there's nothing left to say, when she stares into the distance and the world around her seems to go still, when you feel something quietly moving through her eyes, something with no name, no words, yet fully present. Let your words come like a breath, not to inquire, but to empathize. Say it not to make her open up, but to let her know. If one day she needs a place to be still, your gaze is that place. Women love with intuition. They may hear your words, but they feel your presence. If you try too hard to figure them out, you'll reach their mind. But if you simply feel them, you'll reach the place words can't go, their heart. Some women have been hurt by the wrong kind of gaze, a gaze that only saw their body, a gaze that wanted to control, a gaze that said "I love you" but was never truly present. So they learn to hide their emotions, but their eyes, no matter how well they hide, still carry the most honest part of them. If you can see that and respect it, you're helping to heal something someone else unknowingly damaged. Practice being gentle in the way you look. Don't just notice beautiful eyes. Notice what gives those eyes life. Pay attention to where her gaze lingers longest. If anything causes it to dim, if there's a moment when her eyes fall out of sync with her smile, don't try to explain it. Just notice it, and when the time is right, speak to her like a quiet whisper, not to persuade her, not expecting anything in return, just enough so she knows, finally, someone truly sees. There's a kind of connection that doesn't come from holding hands or kissing. It comes from looking at one another and both realizing we understand something without needing to speak. And in love, those moments are often more precious than 1,000 sweet words because they can't be staged. They only happen when both people are fully present. Never underestimate the power of a look given at the right moment. It's not just communication, it's a doorway. And when you are the first man who stops, not to stare, but to listen with your eyes, you become the first man she dares to look at a little longer, to stay with a little more stillness, because she knows, in your gaze, she doesn't need to speak, yet she is heard. 5. Being with you reminds me of what it felt like to be a boy. When a man has been through enough storms, he gradually becomes more rational with his own emotions. Life stops being a playground and turns into something that needs structure. He plans each step carefully, weighs every relationship, and learns to pack his feelings into something measured. Love, too, becomes something to manage. Not something that makes the heart race, but something to control, to avoid losing something more important. But then there are moments, quiet, subtle, that unravel all that carefully built armor. All it takes is a presence that feels completely natural, someone who doesn't try to impress, yet still stirs something inside. And the man realizes maybe the part of him he thought had been lost in the past is still alive. It's just that he's been too busy to feel it. Your youth doesn't make me feel old. On the contrary, it softens something in me I can't quite explain. When I'm with you, I stop thinking about schedules. I stop weighing what's logical. I just want to live fully in that moment. And that doesn't make me weak. If anything, it brings me closer to who I really am, more than I've felt in a long time. There are moments when I ask myself, what have I lost along the path of growing up? Have I been so busy that I forgot what it feels like to sit next to someone, just to hear them talk about nothing in particular? Forgot how a single glance or an offhand comment could give meaning to an entire day. With you, those things return, not loud, not forced. They just come back. It's not the kind of emotional explosion you feel in your early 20s. It's something deeper, something real. It's the feeling of coming back to a part of myself, the part that once knew how to love without calculation, once believed in invisible connections, wanted to hold a hand, not to claim it, but to know that I wasn't alone. You didn't do anything extraordinary, but it's exactly that ease in you that makes it easier to breathe. In a world full of expectations, strategies, and constraints, sometimes what touches a man most is a woman who enters his life gently, but leaves a lasting impression that's hard to shake. And it's from that point that I truly understand the difference between being attracted to and being moved by someone. You didn't make me want to conquer, you made me want to be real. And for a man who's grown used to hiding, that kind of touch goes deep. People often assume that to attract a younger woman, a man needs experience, stability, a calm exterior. But few talk about the reverse, how a young woman, when she's natural and perceptive, can make a grown man pause and look inward, make him realize how long he's neglected his own emotions. So when I say that being with you makes me feel like a boy again, I don't say that to flatter you. I mean it. It's how I admit that you've brought something into my life that not everyone could. You helped me reconnect with the purest part of myself. If there's one piece of advice I could give other men, it would be this. Don't be afraid to acknowledge how you really feel in the presence of a woman like that. Don't assume calmness has to mean silence. Let her know that, even though she's young, she's left something lasting in you, not because she tried, but because she was real. And sometimes, what's real carries more weight than any calculated charm ever could. She might never say it out loud, but every woman wants to know that her presence matters, not because she's beautiful, but because just by being there, she could reach something in a man in a way she never expected. And if you're someone who can feel that, say it. Say it in the most honest way you know how. No need for fancy words, no promises, just one look, one moment deep enough, and a true presence. Sometimes, the only thing a woman wants is to know she can soften a man who's been used to storms. And if she's done that, then you owe it to her to let her know. 6. When I'm near you, my mind stops listening to reason. There are things young women will never admit they want to hear, not because they're too bold, but because they touch something deep, where reason doesn't dare go, yet emotion quietly lingers. And a man who's truly attuned doesn't need to spell anything out. He only needs to let her feel it. When I'm near you, something in me always shifts. It's not because you're trying to be seductive. It's not because I've lost control. It's because your presence carries a slower rhythm, completely different from the pace of the outside world. In that closeness, all the familiar parts of me, boundaries, principles, logic, start to blur. They don't disappear, they just soften, like a quiet instinct longing to relax. I used to think that after all these years, I was immune to fleeting things, but it turns out I hadn't stopped feeling. I'd just forgotten how to surrender to feeling. And when I'm near you, I start to remember, not with my mind, but with sensation. The sensation of a man slowly realizing he's no longer calm around someone. It's hard to describe. There's nothing specific to point to. No line crossed. No words said out of turn. It's just that the air feels a little heavier. The gaze lingers a little longer, and the silence between two people suddenly carries an unspoken tension. She won't ask, and I won't say it out loud, but we both know something is forming, not named, not shaped, but very real. It floats between desire and respect, between emotion and restraint. And it's that lack of clarity that makes it unforgettable. Men often think attraction is about looks or confidence, but what truly draws a young woman in is when she senses that her presence is shaking a man's usual sense of control, when his calm begins to flicker, when his grip on composure starts to give way to instinct, when his eyes no longer have a logical reason to stay fixed for so long. In that exact moment, if you're a man with experience, let her feel it. Don't explain it. Don't rush. Don't speak in clear terms. Let her walk through that silence and understand that she holds a kind of pull that needs no proof. There are moments when I want to go back to the conversation we were having, but my mind isn't there anymore. Every word, you say, passes through my ears, but doesn't land. Not because it's not interesting, but because all my senses are being overtaken by something else, something nameless, yet undeniably present. At one point, I turn to you and say quietly, I'm still trying to focus on what you're saying, but I can't, and I think you know why. That's all. Nothing more, no pressure, but enough for you to feel exactly what's happening inside me, without needing to explain a thing. And that's a mature attraction. It doesn't rely on bold words. It lets the other person feel it for themselves. When you're refined enough to wrap attraction in respect, she won't forget you, even if nothing happens after, even if you don't take it any further. The feeling that she once made a man lose control of his thoughts will stay, quietly, for a long time, and it's something she'll never admit, but it's exactly what she'll remember. A man can attract with words, but he only becomes unforgettable when he makes a woman feel something she can't put into words. When she walks away, still wondering, why can't I stop thinking about that moment? Real allure doesn't come from any one action. It comes from that moment of tension between two people, when they're still keeping their distance, but both know they're standing right at the edge of something tender and fragile. Some men enter a woman's life with laughter, with gifts, with the usual charm, and then slowly fade away. But there are others who, with just a well-timed glance or a word that touches something hidden inside her, stay for a very long time, quietly, effortlessly, but unforgettable. True attraction has never come from muscles, fame, or status. It isn't in smooth talk or techniques designed to impress. It comes from how you show up, attentive enough to listen, empathetic enough to understand, and perceptive enough to see something in her that even she hasn't seen in herself. The words you just heard in this video aren't pick-up lines. They weren't made to make you instantly attractive. They're here to remind you of this. Sometimes, what makes a woman stay is the way you see something she's never had the confidence to name. It's how you make her feel worth that runs deeper than anything on the surface. You don't need to memorize all 6 lines. Just choose one, the one that genuinely connects with something true inside you, and when the moment is right, say it. No rush, no performance, no trying to impress. Let her feel, instinctively, that you mean it. Because a woman might forget a touch, but she'll remember a look, a word, that made her heart pause for a beat. And sometimes, just one right sentence can keep you in her mind long after the conversation ends. No need to cling, no need to persuade, just be real and deep enough. Before I let this moment fade into silence, I want to tell you something. What you've just listened to wasn't adapted, wasn't translated, and certainly wasn't borrowed. While the theme may echo something familiar, every word, every pause, every image was written slowly and with intention, shaped by a voice that isn't here to impress, but simply to be real. This isn't a script I stumbled upon, it's something I've lived through, and if somewhere in these lines you felt even a small part of yourself being seen, then perhaps that alone is what this piece was meant to do.